Okay, this lesson is for Mrs. Cucci's College Now Precalculus class. This is lesson 7.3b. We're continuing with complex numbers and trig notation. Okay, so today we're going to keep doing like we did yesterday with adding and subtracting. We're going to do multiplication and division with trigonometric notation. Okay, so remember that what we're going to be doing, we have two complex numbers written in trig notation. So we'll call it r sub 1 cosine of theta sub 1 plus I sine of theta sub 1. And remember, we learned how to find these last time, taking a standard form, a plus bi, and turning it into this form. What we're going to do is, say we have two of those, so let's multiply it by another number written in trigonometric notation, r sub 2 cosine theta sub 2 plus I sine theta sub 2. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're just going to simplify this a little bit. And we're going to do some distributing, multiplying, factoring all in step. And what we're going to end up with is r sub 1, r sub 2 times cosine theta sub 1 cosine theta sub 2 minus sine theta sub 1 sine theta sub 2 plus r sub 1 r sub 2 sine of theta sub 1 cosine of theta sub 2 plus cosine of theta sub 1 sine of theta sub 2, all that multiplied by I, that second bracket. Okay. And we're going to continue. We're going to be using our identities of sums of angles. Remember to look at your note cards. And we can simplify this to being r sub 1, r sub 2, cosine of theta sub 1 plus theta sub 2 plus r sub 1, r 2, sine of theta sub 1 plus theta sub 2 I. One more thing, we can pull out our GCF and get r sub 1 r sub 2 times the cosine of theta sub 1 plus theta sub 2 plus I times the sine theta sub 1 plus theta sub 2. And this right here is going to be our general rule for when we have to multiply two complex numbers that are written in trigonometric notation. So let's try an example of this. Okay, let's try doing 3 times the cos of 40 degrees plus I sine of 40 degrees times 4 cosine of 20 degrees plus I sine of 20 degrees. Okay, so we're going to use our formula. We have R1, R sub 1, R sub 2, which is 3 times 4. And we're going to be multiplying that by cosine of 40 plus 20 plus I times the sine of 40 plus 20. Okay, and now we'll just go through and simplify. We have 12 cosine of 60 plus I sine 60. And we're going to get this in exact value. It's going to be 12 times a half plus I times radical 3 over 2. And when we distribute, rationalize, reduce, all that good stuff, we're going to get 6 plus 6I radical 3. There we go. Okay, let's try one more example of these. So we want to multiply together 2 times the cosine of pi plus I sine pi times 3 times the cos of negative pi over 2 plus I times the sine of negative pi over 2. Okay, so we use our formula, remember, we're going to have R1, R2, which is 2 times 3, times the cosine of theta 1, theta 2, which is going to be pi plus negative pi over 2 plus I sine pi plus negative pi over 2. This is going to be 6 cosine of pi over 2 plus the negative pi over 2 is just going to leave us with positive pi over 2 plus the sine I sine of pi over 2. We reduce this to get 6 times 0 plus I times 1. Sine of pi over 2 is 1. And that's going to equal 6I. Okay. Now we can move on. We talked about multiplication. We'll come up with division. And so for division, we're going to have the same two general terms, two general complex numbers, r1 cos theta 1 plus I sine of theta 1. And this time we're going to be dividing by r2 cosine theta 2 plus I sine theta 2. And I'm going to skip that derivation process, but I'll just give you the rule. It's going to be r1 over r2 times the cosine of theta 1 plus theta 2 plus I sine of theta 1 plus theta 2. That's our rule. Let's try it with an example. Let's say we wanted to do 2 times the cosine of 3 pi over 4 plus I sine of 3 pi over 4, and we want to divide that by 4 cosine pi over 2 plus I sine pi over 2. So we just apply our rule. R1 over R2 is 2 over 4 cosine 3 pi over 4 plus pi over 2 plus I sine 3 pi 4 plus pi over 2. Reduce, we're going to get 1/2 cosine of pi sorry, these are minuses, not pluses. Make sure you change that. These are minuses, not pluses. These are still pluses, obviously, but these have to change to minuses when we're doing division. So we just end up with cosine of pi plus I sine of pi and when you do the values of cosine, values of sine, simplify, reduce, you're going to get negative 1/2. Okay, let's just get one more example here. Here we're going to have a two-step problem. We want to do 1 plus I all over 1 minus I. And what we want to do is convert to trigonometric notation, and then we want to divide this. So first things first. 1 plus I written in trigonometric notation. If you remember, we had an example like this already. With an example like this already in the first video, where we had 1 plus I. And we found that to be by using our trig and our techniques for changing this into complex trigonometric notation for a complex number, we ended up that it was radical 2 times the cosine of 45 degrees plus I times the sine 45 degrees. Once again, if you don't remember how to do that, I'll refer back to the first video where we did it out. And I minus 1 come out to radical 2 cosine of 315 degrees plus I times the sine of 315 degrees. Okay, so now these two things we're dividing, both in trigonometric notation. We can use our rule. So we have R1 over R2, which is going to be radical 2 over radical 2. It's going to be multiplied by the cosine of 315 minus 45 plus I times the sine 315 minus 45 so radical 2 divided by 2 is 1. Cosine notice here what I did, I switched them around by accident. Remember, it's theta 1 minus theta 2, so theta 1 is 45 degrees, theta 2 is 315 degrees. So it should be 45 minus 315. Should be 45 minus 315. So we have the cosine of negative 270 degrees plus I times the sine of negative 270 degrees cosine of negative 270 is 0. Sine of negative 270 is 1. And we're going to multiply that by I. So we are left for our final answer as being I. Okay, so that's all the time we have for today. Please bring any questions to class, and we will see you tomorrow.